The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, and I am here in New Orleans at the WERC Annual 2025 Conference, and I am joined by Sikander of Synkrato. He is the founder and CEO, right, over there, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about Synkrato, but also we're going to talk a little bit about what he's seeing in the industry. We're also going to talk a little bit about AI in the warehouse itself and in the industry in general, which is a hot topic for sure. There's a couple sessions here I've seen touching on AI, and certainly everywhere we go, everybody's talking about AI this, AI that. What's going on with that? So first, why don't tell us first how you're doing. How's the conference?
It's been great so far. Second year at WERC, and it's been always enjoy this conference. It feels like you get to meet with your people. People down at that level that you're talking about, and they understand what you're saying. We're speaking the same lingo, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the few that is solely kind of focused on warehousing, right? Yep. Which definitely makes a difference, yes, right? So you said these are your people, right? Yes. So for people that aren't familiar with Synkrato, tell us a little bit about what you do in the warehouse itself.
Yeah, along those lines, my official LinkedIn title is Warehouse Geek. That's kind of what I think of.
There we go. Love that.
Yeah, spent my entire career in and around warehouses, building systems for logistics, specifically for warehousing, for a long time. Let's say 30 years now. With a variety of best-of-breed WMS vendors. Then I had a services company that I ran for 18 years, implementing such solutions. The last couple of years, I focused on Synkrato. Happy to talk about that, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. So tell us about Synkrato. Tell us what it is you do.
So the reason we started Synkrato was, I'm from the Silicon Valley, right? And I keep hearing all these buzzwords. So this is going to disrupt, this is going to move the needle, this is going to change the world, right? But I feel for the first time in my life, it's a perfect marriage of technology and problem, right? I always feel there's always the danger that, you're a solution searching a problem sometimes, right? I still don't know what to do with blockchain, honestly, at the warehouse level. But AI is enabling us to solve problems that we really couldn't do so before. That's very exciting.
Interesting. And so how are you leveraging AI in the solution itself?
So fundamentally the problem we're trying to solve is, Kevin, and you know this better than most people, right? That it's surprising that warehouses still run so much on tribal knowledge.
Right.
By people knowing the industry, by people knowing the floor and how things operate.
Yeah.
Very little data-driven decision making. Even when you put in a WMS system, right? There's so many configurations and flags that you need to turn on, and you better hope and pray you get the right consultant do it for you. Otherwise, you're a bad implementation. You're stuck with it forever. Right?
Yeah.
And even if you do everything right, you do that for a given moment in time. You configure these systems for how your business looks like today. But, our businesses are not static. It changes all the time, especially now with tariffs. God knows what's going on, right?
Lots of uncertainty. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I think AI can excel. You can sit on top of your existing systems, look at everything that's going on, and make recommendations every day on how to improve your life as a warehouse manager.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that's so important because there are so many things going on now, right? And in a session this morning, talked about a long time ago, right? It was okay if things weren't happening instantly, right? But that now that's table stakes, right? It needs to happen instantly because we need to keep up with this huge demand, right? For delivery and the customer expectation and all these different things. So there's a lot of talk about AI. Tell us a little bit about, some of the, practical applications and how is AI actually being leveraged in a warehouse environment? Because there's multiple different types of AI too, right? So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing there.
Well, AI right now, when people think about AI, most people think about ChatGPT,
right?
About the LLM, right? And yes, there's an application for that in the warehousing, but you're absolutely right. Multiple different kinds of AI. There's the classical AI that does the optimization of slotting, etc.
Yeah.
And then there's the generative models of AI that can do simulations. And the way I explain it is like, given a warehouse, to have an AI engine do all these multiple permutations of things that can happen. The way I try to explain it is, let's say you're Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
And you're the Avengers and you're battling Thanos, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And you're getting your butt handed to you.
Yeah.
You're trying everything you can, that nothing is working. That's your typical warehouse manager. You're reacting to stuff that's thrown at you, right? But then off to the side is Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And what is he doing? He's running through every possible combination in the multiverse, right?
Okay.
Things can happen.
Yeah.
That's what AI can do, right? It can take your people, take your data, take your warehouse, run through all these permutations, combinations, simulations to say, today, this is what you should focus on, right? That's kind of what is exciting. Right now, a lot of the calories on AI are being spent on automation.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge opportunity to expand that down to optimization at the software level.
Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely see AI around some of that, the automation, right? Whether it's driving some of the automation decisions or other things of that nature, or seeing some stuff around like predictive maintenance too, and things of that nature. But when you talk about driving it down to optimization, right? What types of examples are you thinking there?
So, as a couple of examples, I'll give you, right? Within a warehouse, fairly common problem is to ask me, do I have enough people? Right?
Right.
I have enough people today, but let's say I have a 20% spike in demand.
Yeah.
Do I have enough people? Do I have enough equipment to handle that, right? Right now, there's no way you can simulate that and get an answer, right? Or even like, if you put in an AS, I was having a conversation with one of the largest auto manufacturing companies in the world, right?
Yeah.
And the warehouse manager said to me, I've been running this warehouse for 30 years. My company wants me to put in this ASRS system, which sounds good on paper, but I don't know if it's going to make me better or not, because I don't know. I know only what the vendor is telling me.
Right.
But for my warehouse, for my operations, for my people, my sales orders, is this going to be a bottleneck or is it going to make me better? I cannot answer that question.
Yeah, interesting. So you can leverage the AI in a sense to try and get the answer to the question.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And so how would that work? Like, what does that look like?
So we start off with creating, in order to optimize anything in a warehouse, right? You need to understand the physical structure of the warehouse.
Right.
So you need a digital twin. And people get scared of digital twins because it's so abstract. But when I'm talking about digital twin, it's essentially a digital replica of your warehouse.
Okay.
Right? You have that, and then you bring in your data from your ERP, and now your AI engine, because it has this virtual world, it can run through all these actual simulations. Let's say, because it knows exactly, you're using a Toyota forklift or a Six River or a Zebra robot.
Yeah.
And you know the throughput. Now we can do simulations to come back and give you answers to pretty much any question you can ask in a warehousing world.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that's, as the complexity of these solutions grows, right? Or even just the sheer like number of solutions, right? Trying to navigate which is the right one, which is going to give me that throughput, right? And I listened to a session this morning, and they were talking about like, well, how do we evaluate it based on like our actual cost per unit shipped, right? And being able to understand that and get some visibility, I think, especially when you don't already have automation, right? When you're taking that first step, I think can go a long way. So how do you recommend somebody, if they are in that situation where they're just looking to start to bring automation in or some next level technology into the operations, what's the best way to approach that?
I think you alluded to this earlier, right? The greatest barrier to bringing in all these cool technologies that can make your life better is complexity, or the perceived complexity. And how do you mitigate the risk? How do you make sure that it can actually work well for you in the context of your environment, right? Because everybody thinks their warehouse is different. Whether it is not, that's one true sentiment, right? Everybody thinks their business is different. Everybody thinks their warehouse is different.
Yeah.
And it is true to an extent, right? Because it matters. So it's important that you have the ability to do these simulations in your environment in something that's realistic to you, not, and in the context not just of this one isolated system you're looking at, but in the context of your everything else in a warehouse, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people, metal line equipment, and then robotics.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point, right? Because it is encompassing, if you're doing an automation project, you're thinking about like, oh, how do I increase my throughput, or how do I maximize my space utilization, whatever the case may be. How do I deal with my labor challenges, labor shortages, all these different reasons. But, when you look at it as a whole, right, like you may be looking at something that's just going to address picking, for example, right? But how does the kind of AI optimization and the digital twin, in a sense that you mentioned there, I mean, how does that allow you to take into account everything that's happening, whether it's maintenance, people, the robots itself? Tell us about that.
I mean, warehousing to an extent is about compromises, right, Kevin? I mean, what do you want to prioritize, right? Is it picking efficiency? Sure, give me all the space in the world. I'll make your warehouse the most efficient you can, right? You want to have better SLAs? You can throw inventory is a problem, right? So, but everyone on the solutions has its costs, right?
Yeah.
And I think looking at these systems in isolation is not effective. I mean, you can only evaluate, to your point, picking and all that, right? You have to look at all these different things that are going on in your warehouse, picking, replenishment, your agents, the different agents, that's people, MHE, robotics, etc. Right? The problem is once you add in all those parameters, it becomes too complex for a human being to do.
Yeah,
it's just too much, too many permutations and combinations that you can have to play around with, and that's kind of where I think AI is absolutely going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think you start to add in all this data, right, and these understandings and all these different factors and so many inputs too, right? And then how do I bring all these different inputs together into one to understand that? And that's incredibly time consuming, right? Exactly. And sometimes, like some scenarios in an operation, I mean, by the time you can analyze and get to some kind of answer, right, it's like, it's too late. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, I needed this answer 3 days ago, right? Yeah. So
I still got to start get my stuff out the door today.
Yeah. Like we still got to figure it out. So then, it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna work around everything and brute force it out the dock door, right? So very interesting there. And I think, how do you see, or how would you recommend? Because we talk about it, and you mentioned like the idea of a digital twin it can be a little large of an idea or complex for people to grasp in some regards, but I think so is AI too, right? Because you think, like you mentioned, most people think right away about ChatGPT because that's the most kind of user interactive, I guess, type, right? And very accessible in that sense. But how do you recommend people that, because I think people oftentimes, these large ideas, new technologies, like, they get a little stuck because it's too much to digest at first. Like, how do you recommend people starting to understand AI and the potential power it has for their operations and start to really just kind of dive into it?
I think the fundamentals still apply, Kevin, because you always have to start with a problem, right? Sometimes the danger is with cool technology like AI, you're doing it because everybody's doing AI, I got to do AI.
Yeah.
I think, we got to step back and say, what problem can I solve with this technology, right? And how do I do it? The danger, the fear that people have with AI is that it's kind of like a black box, right? How do you trust the stuff that's coming out of this AI engine? Because I don't know how it did what it did.
Yeah.
So you have to make it explainable as well. So I think those are two most important things. Focus on a specific problem with quantifiable, measurable ROI at the end of it, and focus on making the AI explainable as much as possible so you can understand what it's doing. Right?
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way in building trust in the system. Without it, you can have the best system in the world. It won't matter.
Yeah. And I've heard some stories like that before too, where people spend all this money on a system and like, none of my employees are using it. Yep. Right. So that's very interesting. I mean, I think it's something that AI has been around for a long time, right? Yep. But in the conversation and our lives in general, it's very much more prominent now in the last 2-3 years, I guess. And so it's very interesting to see how people are are adopting to it, and how they're kind of bringing it into whatever it is they're doing, right? And I think these use cases, they're exponentially growing, on a monthly basis, weekly basis, even, right? And just as AI itself, right? The more repetitions, right, the better it gets, supposedly, right? And in most scenarios. So, if we think about AI, and I think oftentimes too around like automation and robotics in the warehouse, I mean, I've heard multiple people say that, like, well, it's not necessarily for everyone, right? Would you say the same thing about AI, or do you think that there's use case for everybody?
I had the exact same question during my presentation this morning, right? And I think this is one of those technologies that can be leveraged no matter what size you are. Like, we have customers that are, Fortune 50 customers, and customers that are like, warehouses that have like 30,000 square feet or less. Right?
Interesting.
And there's an opportunity to leverage it regardless of what size of distribution center you have.
Interesting. So for that,
unlike automation, right, which needs a certain amount of scale. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And for somebody that's like that 30,000 square feet, right, that you said, I mean, how does implementing, I guess, at that size, like, how does that then help them when they're ready to grow to the next building, or get bigger, or have more volume, or whatever the case may be, that scale?
I think the key is not to rush in and rip and replace your systems with AI, right? But to use AI to make your existing systems better, to build a layer on top of your existing systems. So then as you grow and you go with better transactional systems as a foundation layer, your AI can work with that as well. I think that's how you're trying to future-proof yourself, right? And separate yourself from the intelligence layer being one part of it, but then the transaction processing, the actual execution could be something else.
Interesting. And then for the, we're here at WERC, right? And as we talked about, like, these are our people, right? Warehouse people, right? But the warehouse, whether there's automation or not, right? I mean, at the core is certainly like that warehouse worker on the floor, right? So how is AI kind of tying into the on the floor worker? Is it something that they even know is going on? They'll see, like, what does that look like?
I think they'll see, and I think that's one of the cool things about AI that is possible, right? I don't hopefully continue down this path, because if you think about it, some part of AI is about automating the human workflow, if you will, taking things that people can do and making it faster and cheaper. And let's not kid ourselves here, right? It's about replacing people to some extent. Warehousing, though, we have a different problem, right? We can't find the people to do the jobs that we need to do, right? And I think AI is about giving these people superpowers, if you will, to be able to do things that they couldn't do before because they're constantly reacting. At the end of the day, I'll give you a practical example, right? If you use AI to do slotting, continuous slotting in the warehouse, right? You're cutting down dramatically the amount of distance you have to walk in a day to fulfill your day's worth of orders, right? Sometimes by about 50% or more, right? And that makes a drastic difference to the warehouse worker, right? So I think it's going to impact everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious, like, does the on the floor worker feel the impact of AI? And I think it's kind of what you're saying absolutely. Is that, like, if you look at like an example like slotting, like you mentioned, like, you're going to reduce travel time and those sort of things, which they'll see the positive benefit of. I'm curious there too, and this is a question I've been asking people lately, and because I think that we're seeing, we're certainly at this point where I think adoption is increasing, right? Whether it's of robotics, automation, AI solutions, and that kind of changes over time what the roles and the jobs in the warehouse look like. So if you kind of look into, your crystal ball, I guess, in a sense, right, in the future here, I mean, and we look 5 years out, 10 years out, I mean, maybe even like 15 years out, right? Right now the entry level job at a warehouse is essentially like a material handler, basically, right? But we're looking at a lot of these things and trying to take away like extra travel time, like you said, right? Or heavy lifting and these things that, people don't naturally enjoy doing, I guess, is the way I put it. So what do you think, like 15 years from now? I mean, what does an entry level job in a warehouse look like?
I know what I would like it to look like.
Yeah.
I think I would like it to look like more like a video game developer. I know it's a little bit of
Interesting.
a different,
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
so we get to a future where warehouses are pretty automated, but you still need people to control these different automations, right? Think about the drones that are flying around, doing cycle counting. Now you have robotics, and you really are the controller, right? And I think the younger generation will be far better at that than I am.
I'm sure. Yeah. So my son would be great.
That'll be my future, my desire for a future.
Yeah, interesting. And so, what do you think that companies should be doing now to be ready for that?
It's a hard question. I think we have to let it play out a little bit more. We're still in the. I mean, I would say when AI first came out, it's just people throwing stuff at the wall, right? Trying to figure out what. And I think we are in the second phase of that, where we actually have quantifiable use cases and people are getting down to that. If you're a company, I think if you're not already on the AI bandwagon, you got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
No matter which direction, it's gonna come, right? And I think somebody said no. It's not necessarily that AI is going to replace people, but companies with AI are going to replace companies without AI, and I believe that. Right?
Yeah.
So you have to start investing in that technology today, right? Everything else will follow. But let's get started.
Interesting. So you think if a company decides like they're not going to go that path, I mean, do you think that they have longevity still, or are they not as competitive?
I don't think they'll be as competitive in the future. No.
Just because they can't move as quickly,
they can't be as agile.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think that's really interesting. So now if people want to kind of get started, or they want to check out Synkrato to get started with some AI optimization and different solutions, what's the process to do that? What does that look like?
Surprisingly, a lot of people seem to start with the AI engine. Right? They go ask ChatGPT. Hey, can you recommend me AI for me? Right? That's kind of how.
Hey AI, how can I use AI?
Yeah, right. It's ironic, but it's kind of where people are. And it's surprising. ChatGPT does come up with pretty reasonable answers. So there's a lot of companies out there, including ourselves, that are doing exciting work in this field. A lot of work being done on vision as well, Kevin, which I'm very excited about. Right?
Yeah.
So I think we live in interesting times. It's both a blessing and a curse.
Okay, I like that. Definitely. Yeah. So really appreciate you kind of sitting down here with me at the conference, and wishing you a good rest of the conference as well. And if people are interested in learning more about Synkrato, what's the best way to get in touch or learn?
Come to our website, synkrato.com. That's synkrato.com, and check us out. Reach out to us. Happy to have a conversation.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So thank you, Amin, for joining me here at the WERC conference.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.